Hello, Val.
Hi, can you see my screen?
Yeah, I sure can. It's great. Really clear.
I just have to find the agenda, which I was sure I had excuse me, I tabbed and I'm not seeing it. So
I have it open, but that's probably um, less convenient than.
let me just see if I can get into my file.
Hope everything's okay.
Yeah, I mean, some things that I am seeing on the Zoom setup meeting thing and on the YouTube, I don't remember seeing before. So I had to do something I haven't done before and take a chance that it would work.
They probably have continued because of the ubiquity of Zoom. There are probably updates and adjustments.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case. Okay,
Yep,
okay.
there it
See the
is. Yeah.
agenda now. Okay.
Yeah. The one thing that I don't, yeah, I think you do have the power to enlarge it within the
Yeah.
screen.
I
There we
do.
go. Yeah, I think that I'm lucky to be on a big screen, but I think others might
Right.
appreciate it.
Okay.
That's great.
Let me just see if we're broadcasting because I started it early.
When I logged in, I did see a consent box, so that seemed to imply that we were already live.
Okay. Oh, well, that's a good sign, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. Did we hear definitively from Ryan Wiley that he can make it, or
I did not hear from him today, and I think just a lot depended on the baby.
Yep.
Yep. So I think if we haven't heard that he's not going to be here, well, I know. I mean, if he doesn't show, he doesn't show. We know why.
I think that's where we are. Babies, take their own sweet time.
They do.
Or choose their own sweet time.
Yep. And I don't know if it's the first one for them or not, but they come anytime.
Right. Good.
Okay. I have to turn off some audios here because I can hear us live in real time. And
I guess I will probably go to video now, or just about.
Okay.
Oh, I guess we've still got a few minutes. I might.
Yeah, we do. I did this early just because I had a feeling I might need the extra time.
Yeah.
There's Sue.
But it looks really well organized.
Okay, good. Hi, Sue.
Hello, Sue.
Hi there.
There we are. That's interesting. Val saw you before me, which tells me that Huguenot Street has a faster connection. Or
it could also be that I'm the host and maybe I see.
Yeah, I think that's probably it, because when I'm hosting, I can usually I see people before others.
Right. Oh. Sue, how are you? Everything okay?
I'm okay.
Good. Oh. Did I remember that you would have been away Monday? I hope.
Yes. Well, I would have been away this week. I got my dates kind of mixed up. I'm going to Cape Cod next week, and this is a 2-year postponement. The first year, it was postponed because of COVID, and then last year we would have gone, and it was going to be my mother and I, and we were kind of hesitant with the COVID, and she had started to not feel well, so it was really good that we didn't go.
Yeah, that's transparently a good idea.
Yeah. So, and they were good enough to let me just keep, delaying. So I'm going up next week.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
The little bit I don't know if you're leaving as early as this weekend, but we're meant to have a very nice couple of days after tomorrow, I think.
I know. I'm really hoping I have decent weather. And I have friends up there, and I know lots of people that were up there recently, and I've been asking, what's the situation with COVID, and everybody feels that it's pretty good,
Yeah.
that there's not too many concerns. So it's not like going to Florida.
Right. Right. I'm just back from Ohio, and the
How is
level of mask wearing was definitely a different.
Oh, yeah. Well, really, it's amazing. Anytime you kind of get out of the Hudson Valley, it feels like the level of mask wearing drops significantly.
Yep, probably.
Yeah.
Somebody today was saying even in Dutchess County, it seemed different, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, New Paltz has got to be the most cautious that I have seen.
Yeah. Well, I think the campus is doing a really good job of, convincing students of the value. At least that's what I see.
Good.
And that includes students walking on a completely empty Grove Street on the way back to their dwellings wearing masks sometimes, which I don't do.
Okay.
So I think
I was following a school bus today, and I was pretty horrified because all the kids crowd around in the back and knock on the window or whatever, and they all pretty much all had their masks on, but they were more like chin guards.
Yeah.
And then a couple of the kids were really fooling around. One kid pulled his off, was like trying to spit in it and give it to another kid, and that was like, oh my God.
How would you like to be an elementary school or middle school teacher?
No.
Right?
No. I'm so glad I'm retired.
Yeah. Yep. Camilla, hi.
Good evening. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you.
Likewise. I do wish it were live, but we'd be talking through masks, so
Yes.
Yeah.
not sure
It
what.
might be difficult with the audio. It's sometimes very inaudible. I listened in on some of the village board and planning board meetings, and it's hard to hear with the masks on sometimes.
By contrast, this all sounds pretty good. Looks like Steve is just about in. We were already at quorum. I've not heard that Chris can't come, but I also didn't hear any affirmation that he is. On the strength of knowing that we'd have a quorum, I gave Pat the night off, so to speak. I mean, Pat really is our alternate now, and I don't think should be called upon unless we really need her. But I wanted to let you know that I also made it clear that she's always welcome to attend. She'll keep getting all the mailings as if she were permanent. And it's really just, I think, almost a procedural question whether she's here to vote or not. So.
She had let me know ahead of time she wasn't available tonight anyway. So.
Oh, okay. Well, then I was the last one to the party there, but she was
No,
very
I appreciated that you wrote to her and made it clear that she's always welcome.
Well, she's been just wonderful to have aboard, and she'll be, you couldn't ask for a better, more experienced alternate.
Right.
So, hi, Steve.
Hello.
Hi,
Good
Steve.
evening.
Hey, Steve.
There we are.
Okay, I think that we are just a minute or two after 9, and so I'm inclined to get
Yeah.
Boy, are you 9? Someone's
7.
talking.
Sorry, I'm using a 24-hour clock, and somehow I saw the 9. 7, 1900. So I think we should open this meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission of the Village of New Paltz. We are meeting Wednesday, September 15th, 2021, just a couple of minutes after 7 p.m. We are holding this via Zoom and YouTube, and the public can, and in fact may already be hearing, and we will have the ability to hear comments. So let me just again formally welcome everybody back. It's really nice to see faces, even if it's through a screen. Why don't we go to the approval of the minutes? And then we probably should hold off until, Val, did you give a time to Ryan?
No, I was just realizing I hadn't. I mean, he saw that he was toward the top of the agenda, but I'm emailing him now.
Okay. I think what we can do is after the minutes, then there's nothing stopping us from going to Steve's application, Steve and Christine's, and then we can double back if it seems appropriate. The mayor is meant to be joining us in about 15 minutes, and I'd like to respect his time when he logs on.
I move that the minutes be accepted.
I second.
Second. I feel the same. I didn't see anything that needs amendment or addition. Val, you had a mild concern that maybe some things got missed, but I didn't see anything of I didn't see anything.
Yeah, it was really that my usual practice is to review the recording, and I looked at that prospect with much trepidation given the circumstances last time. So I did not do that. And I just wanted to make sure that my notes were thorough, because that's all I relied on for the minutes this time. I did not go back to the recording.
They certainly seemed thorough to me.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah. That's great. Let's everybody go to a
Did we have a
preliminary.
full approval? I'm sorry, I got the motion in a second, but I wasn't sure. If we
Sorry. Yes, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, unanimous. Moved by Mr. Cook. I didn't catch the second.
Yeah, Camilla seconded.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
everyone, next, let's go to a preliminary discussion of HPC 2106. This comes on behalf of Stephen Cook and his wife Christine Marmo, 127 Huguenot Street. Steve, you know the process, so how about walking us through both what we're seeing and the addendum that we talked about a couple of days ago?
Okay. We've been living here for a year plus now, and one of the things that was in poor shape to begin with was the deck that Ellen had put on about 20 years ago. It's braced with 4x4 beams, and the wood is getting rotting. So we propose to replace the deck in a pretty much a like for like manner. We would keep the exact same floor plan. It would be the same dimensions. It would use the same staircase down to the ground in the same location. There's also a big concrete footer at the bottom of the stairs. We would be reusing that, but we would be building with substantially stronger wood. The only difference that I can see would be, instead of vertical guards, we would be using horizontal cables, a little bit more minimal of a look. So we had architect Richard Miller, who worked for and designed the wing that Ellen put on. He did the work that we proposed a couple of years ago to HPC, and the renderings that are included were from him. So the first part of this was the deck. There is the existing deck that would be, as I said, replaced, and it's best visible there from that rear elevation on the top left. Richard just used the same designs from before. He did not put in that vertical, it replaced the vertical cabling, vertical boards with the horizontal cabling. And then we would consider whether we would put underneath the deck some sort of screen. We have the lawnmowers parked there, the gas cans, the splits are back there. They're very well hidden, but they are right there. So we had thought about putting something horizontal but breathable, not a permanent thing, but just something that would obscure what is in under the deck. None of that is, what's under the deck is really not visible from the street. It's not really visible by the neighbors. If you are in the Harcourt Nyquist Preserve and you're walking on one of the trails seasonally, you can see the back of the house from one spot, but it's not highly visible. The second part, which again from that top left image, we are proposing to put a pergola in the back by that back door, the ground level back door. by which we can grow grapes. So we are planning on having a grape arbor. We did that when we lived on Prospect Street, and it would be the width of that section of the house, the width of the extension, and it would come out about 14 or 15 feet, one timber, and then there would be trusses that go across that the grapes grow upon. So it is not really, it's not a closed structure at all. It's attached to the back of the house. There are two posts that would be set out about 14 or 15 feet from the back of the house. And then the grapes are planted by those posts, grow up, and then grow across the top of the pergola. We had worked on that and had been planning on hoping to do that sometime when the cost of construction materials declines a little bit, and when the availability of contractors is a little more available. So this was something that we had Richard Miller do earlier this year and just submitted it. And then one other thing that we had thought about, which was to replace along the northern side of the house, again on that rear elevation picture to the left of the building, there is a gravel and wood staircase that is rotting, and a number of the horizontals have rotted out. And so we desired to put a stone staircase in, and Richard Miller's bottom drawing indicates that. His drawing has kind of an arc there. We have sort of settled on something that would be about 3 feet away from the house to not prevent drainage or to encourage drainage, but just to get the stairs away from the house. It would be basically a straight line. So that runs from near where we park the cars and then down along the side of the house. There is a separate, smaller component of bluestone, is what the material we are planning on using. There's a smaller staircase. When you walk out that back door, the yard drops down rapidly, and we would like to put a staircase there. I've had both my knees replaced. Christina's had a hip replaced, and we struggle a little bit to get down that hill. We can certainly go along the side and around, but in terms of aesthetics and matching the bluestone that we proposed to put to match the bluestone that we had selected for the top, we were going to do the bluestone as well on the lower stairs. So those were the three components of our request.
To me, that's very clear. Sue and Camilla, is there any part of that that you'd like to have repeated or explained again?
No,
No, that sounds great.
Yes, it's a very thoughtful design, and I think it's interesting that you chose the vertical or the horizontal cable instead of the vertical. How do you call it? Balustrades.
Tiles or rails?
Yeah. The rails, because oftentimes when you try to recreate something and have a new addition and try to make it look old, to match the original house, it might not work out as well. But having a completely different design element is encouraged in preservation. So I think that's a nice addition.
I do have to say that the back of the house really does not look much like the front of the house, but the front of the house is where all the traffic is and where people walk by. And that's what our goal has been, pretty much to, maintain that. But the back of the house indeed is, it looks pretty.
Well, I think that's evolving as our charge. It really has to do with views from public rights of way. And I think this will come up tonight when we talk about the split unit air conditioning, that I just think it's a completely different thing to expose the public to a view versus hiding machinery or equipment. where it can't be seen. So I think that's in the spirit of what we're trying to do. I would just echo Camilla, Steve. I think that the vertical wires are a really great idea. They're going to give you more sense of, not being enclosed on your deck. They're also going to be less of a visual element for the few people who would see the house. And I also think that the horizontal slat system that you're thinking of for the area below is really superior to what most people default to, which is the cross hatched. Which kind of, even the good stuff now looks like it came from Home Depot, and this will not. This will look, it's going to have some integrity with the pergola. It's going to follow the horizontal lines of the rails. I think it's a real win, personally.
Thank you. I mean, Richard Miller has done a great job. I know there's one building in the village that he has really struggled with, but he did wonderful work for Ellen. I mean, the living room on again on the top left, that the rear elevation, the 4 windows with the 2 small ones overhead. I mean, he did a fantastic job on designing that, and we're very pleased to work with him. And we think he does excellent work.
Great.
Steve, do you have an image of the pergola you've chosen?
It's gonna just, what I'm gonna do, I think, is get you a picture of what we built on Prospect Street. I can submit that. It will be pretty much the same. There will be the longwise boards will be curved at the end. They won't just be dead end square edges. There will be some, a notch, a curve, something to make them more aesthetically pleasing. And so, yes, I can provide a photo.
Great, thank you.
Great. Hi, Chris.
Hey, how are you?
Good evening. Yeah, nice to see you.
I thought it was 7:15. Was I?
Nope. That's the mayor will be coming around then.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize for being late.
Not to worry. Don't worry.
All right, cool.
So, Chris, just to catch you up, we approved the minutes without amendment. We're now having a preliminary discussion for a project, actually, for our colleagues Steve and Christine, that looks very good to us. Steve, do you want to give the 30-second recap of the 3 phases?
Chris, the image you're seeing, look at the top left for the rear elevation. We,
cool.
My wife and I are proposing that we replace the deck and the staircase that goes along with it with a more substantial support system, 6x6s instead of 4x4s. Instead of those vertical child protection railings, we would be using horizontal cabling and make it a little more airy. Underneath the deck, we would be having a wooden or some sort of not garden variety screening to protect and to shield what's underneath. And then by the lower back door, we are proposing to put up a pergola that would extend out from the back of the house, by which we can grow grapes.
Oh, cool.
And the third part is to replace along the left side of that rear elevation from our driveway down to that back door. There is a decaying stone and timber staircase that is planned to be replaced with some beautiful bluestone, which I can tell you, bluestone is incredibly expensive right now.
Yeah. Like a lot of materials.
People talk about their bicycles being stolen. I'm just glad that each of those slabs weighs about 500 pounds because they're, that's worth more than the car out front. So that is our proposal.
Awesome. Thank you.
I do not see anything that raises any red flags at all here, Steve. The purpose of the preliminary discussion is to make sure that Steve leaves this part of the meeting, clear that there is or there isn't something that needs to be worked on. I think it's all in incredibly good taste and incredibly in the spirit of the house. And honestly, most of it's not going to be visible from Huguenot Street, or it's going to be very minimally visible. So is there anything anyone would urge Steve and Christine to think harder about or change?
No, I think it looks really a well thought out design and will definitely enhance the structure.
Mhm. Sue, anything?
No. I assume the color of the deck, are you going to keep it the same or as the house?
The deck is currently stained wood.
Okay,
So we plan on replicating that.
Okay.
Medium, I mean, I would assume that would be a medium stain, nothing mahogany. I mean, the floors in the house are all very light wood.
right.
Not
Yeah.
that the deck and the interior are just supposed to match, but they would not clash, and it would not be,
Right.
there would be no deck paint or anything like that.
Good.
Very good. Chris, did you have anything that you wanted to share?
I think it sounds great. I really, these are like really thorough
Yes.
I guess renderings here or whatever, but they're really quick cut. So I say
Yes.
good luck.
Yeah. So, Steve, I think that's a green light with just the little footnote that it would be nice to see the pergola design that you have in mind. I mean, I think from the north elevation, we can kind of tell what's intended, but if you have a style that you're thinking, then, you know, that will just clarify come October 20th.
Sure, I will send that in shortly, and then for October 20th, again, any questions that arise between now and then, happy to answer.
Okay. And Val can help you with neighbor notification, which I think
Okay.
because there's new construction, we need to put you through. But she will be able to give you, and I think you've actually been through this once before, so you probably know the list, but she can give you the dates and the list of neighbors.
Perfect.
Yep,
Thank
I'll
you.
give you a packet. You'll be all set.
Okay, so we'll resume on October 20th with public hearing.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That sounds great.
Tim has joined us.
Tim is with us. Tim, hello. I think Tim's with us.
Muted, yeah.
Oh,
Hey, I'm here.
okay, great. Thank you for joining us. Tim, we were hoping to talk about at least 2 and possibly 3 things that are on the docket of the village board. Probably the one that seems to have most immediate and obvious relevance to HPC is the ADU draft law, which Val has just brought up. I hope everybody had a chance to read the draft law and maybe to look at some of the comments that came with, came along with its development. Tim, would you be willing to take a minute or 2 and just kind of tell us where the initiative came from, how it hooks into other planning ideas, what the intent is?
Yeah, sure. So the idea is to give property owners, full-time residents, the option to, instead of automatically selling their home, to add an apartment to generate additional income. I mean, that's the basic concept. This has been reviewed by the county planning board. One of the things that I think is a broader theme is to figure out how we can add more housing supply in the mid-Hudson Valley, and ADU laws are one way of doing that.
I hope everybody had a chance to read the AARP roughly 20-page document, which actually had quite a lot of good information. There it is. Tim, are you aware of any communities in the Mid-Hudson Valley that have made changes to their zoning laws to accommodate ADUs?
Well, actually, the village of New Paltz used to have an ADU law, and then they got rid of it. The village's version several years ago required, it really wasn't a situation where one could create an additional unit. It actually required the property owner to live there. I think what we were trying to do is to be a little bit more flexible and not have a situation that creates uncomfortable enforcement issues for our building department. You know, one of the things that I'm a big proponent of is having code that's enforceable. So I think if the goal of this law is to do a couple of different things, you know, provide income opportunities for property owners, but not require, you know, not absolutely require that the only way you could do an ADU is if you are the permanent resident. Yeah, because I think what you want to do is you want to create situations where, you know, there's housing stability even for the person occupying the ADU. Like, let's say the property gets sold, and then now there's a long-term tenant in the primary unit, as opposed to the owner of the property in the primary unit. I think it makes a good deal of sense, like, not to be handcuffed to only having situations where you know we're requiring property owners to live there. It's just to provide some flexibility and not to set our building department up for failure, or, you know, create situations where the laws are just difficult to enforce, because in general it's pretty hard to prove whether someone has residency. I think what we would rather do is just, you know, have clear and open communication with property owners about what their intention are, and not set up situations where people are trying to get over on the village board or get over on the building department, because that unfortunately happens entirely too often.
Okay, I can see that. My reading of, I actually made a bunch of notes from the AARP document, and I'll share a couple of impressions I had. One is just an observation that it seemed to me that the AARP bias, and I don't mean that in any pejorative way, but the angle that AARP was interested in was senior dwelling, mostly for seniors living in the ADU rather than renting, but they definitely accommodated both. So I would just point out that as we have this conversation, you know, as useful as I found that document, I don't think it really speaks to the situation in New Paltz, and it sounds from what you just said, Tim, it may not even really speak to the principal intents here, which are to allow for income, to create some rental opportunities for people of all ages as opposed to seniors. And I just wondered if others had that impression, or sort of see the issue that way, or differently.
I definitely see the AARP.
Let's go Steve and then Tim.
Oh, I definitely see the AARP is not biased, but yeah, that's their point of view here in terms of allowing seniors to stay in their own places. But you know, even subtracting that, the idea is pretty good.
And Tim?
Yeah, that's my understanding, is that, you know, of course their bias would be a way to, you know, serve the people who are members of their association, and, you know, come up with thoughtful ideas that can empower their members. But I think our objective is to, empower a variety of different community members. I have an accessory apartment in my house, and I've had it for years, and I think it's a fantastic way to pay my taxes, and it seems to work out seamlessly.
Yeah, I think that's going to prove the case. I mean, I guess I feel more confident in this law if it comes with an enforceable short-term rental law, and I don't know to what extent you feel like the short-term rental law is doing what it intended. But one thing that I wouldn't want to see is houses cut up for the profit of short-term rentals, because as our new law recognizes, a whole host of problems come with that, and you do almost nothing. You would end up doing almost nothing for permanent residents, who then get priced out of the accommodation that there is.
Yeah, I've thought a great deal about our short-term rental law and then how it can integrate with this ADU law. I'm very proud of the short-term rental law that we came up with, because I think the reason that we need short-term rental laws is I look at it through a zoning lens, and that we have zoning for a reason. We want commercial neighborhoods, we want mixed use neighborhoods, and we want residential neighborhoods. And I think there's also a safety piece that should never be overlooked in terms of short-term rentals. I'm troubled by this trend where income investors can purchase short-term rental properties, and then that's all that property does. Right. Whereas I'm a big proponent of having community members either own their property or rent their property. I'm pretty agnostic. The thing that I think is really important from a community empowerment perspective is, like, we need people to live here. We need people to volunteer as firefighters or on the HPC or at the library fair. Like, we don't have community if we don't have people who live here. And I'm partial to, like I said, being agnostic as to whether they're the owner of the property or a long-term renter. I think where we run into trouble as a community is when we have residential properties that essentially turn into mini hotels. And the county, when they reviewed our ADU law, one of the things they suggested is, like, not allowing the ADU unit to be used as a short-term rental at all. And the reason that I don't agree with that is because I feel like our short-term rental law already addresses that. So let's say that you are a long-term renter, whether you occupy the primary portion of the property or the accessory portion of the property. That's what matters, is that you're the long-term renter. And if you're the host to a short-term renter, that's fine. It's like, if, and I often come back to this one example of a friend who I went to high school with, whose mom is a retired person who's really enjoying being a short-term rental host. And I think that's fantastic for that individual. They are a long time resident in our community, and they've figured out a way to stay in their home and to, effectively have a little bit of a job. But again, the important thing is that, this is a person with ties to the community. They're going to take pride in being a host. They're going to take pride in being the host for that short-term renter. I feel like that scenario, I'm generally comfortable with that, because you have someone with some long-term entrenched concerns about our community. So I go back to like, I almost think it doesn't matter whether that host is a renter or an owner, just as long as they have, they're the host and they're the one basically taking responsibility for the short-term rental unit.
Mhm. So Tim, just so I'm clear, in that scenario, you could imagine a situation where a long-term renter, let's say occupying, 2 bedrooms in a big house, is actually the host to short-term renters in the 1-bedroom ADU.
Yeah, and so if you look at our short-term rental law, we tried to be pretty flexible and thoughtful about that type of scenario to give people flexibility. It's like, to me, the most important thing is that you need a permanent resident on site, and that kind of protects the community and protects the property, as opposed to no one has long-term concern about where they live within the community or at that particular property.
I would agree with the last point. I guess I can imagine a scenario where someone rents the big part and then serves as the host for the little part, but at the end of the day, it's the landlord presumably who's making the money, right? I mean, the host would get some fee.
Right. I think you'd have to look at the short-term rental law, because what we were trying to do when we came up with the short-term rental law is to empower the long-term renters. Like, if they have a relationship with their landlord where they're allowed to be the host, we could imagine that would be fine. But it even says it in the short-term rental law that would be a relationship that you have to have memorialized with your landlord.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that could be an arrangement, and I guess I don't personally have any issue with that. I hope you would agree, though, Tim. We don't want to create something that ends up just feeding the short-term rental market and really doesn't address the long-term renter crisis. If it's not a crisis, it's definitely a set of challenges for people who, maybe don't have super high-paying jobs but work in the community or committed to the community. And I guess I would just throw that out as a consideration. Let's really think about ways that kind of drive ADUs to people who've made a commitment to the community. And that could be, retirees who want to live now in the little part of the big house and rent the big house for income. It could be people who own a big house but have an ailing parent or loved one. It could be young professionals. It could be, I guess I'm concerned about feeding the short-term rental market. And I guess I'm also a little concerned about feeding the student rental market, especially with the prospect of a lot more student housing coming up. And honestly, the prospect of, making things a lot easier for student renters and not addressing the problem that I think you're talking about, which is we need to serve people that have a longer, more permanent commitment to the community.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we were also trying to do, because I think historically what New Pulse has been too careful with is, and that's why they got rid of the ADU law that was on the books some time ago, is because there's always this concern about like, well, we're like anti-student, or like even creating rules about like how you define families. Like, I really don't want to get involved in anyone's business about, what collection of human beings live in a property and who's related to who. I don't like A, I don't think that that's really anyone's business. And B, I don't even think it's possible to figure out. And it kind of goes back to that idea of like, we need to have codes that are enforceable, and our building department can't be responsible for figuring out who might be related to who.
Mhm.
So, the other thing that I think what we're trying to do is like, we're facing a very serious affordability crisis in the Mid Hudson Valley. And I think by thinking about long-term renters as the, community members who we want to stay here. And let's say you're a young professional and you're a long-term renter, and maybe you're a short-term rental host. Like, that could work. Like, if that's a way for you to make your living situation affordable, I think that's a good thing. I think we need to allow for some of that creativity to exist, because I think we're past the concern that we had, and it wasn't too long ago, where the concern was that there were like only two things going on as far as housing in the village, and it was like the long-term residents were being squeezed out and the income investors were taking over, and it was just like super transient college oriented housing. I think there are other things going on now, and for good reason too. Like, now we have young professionals who want to stay here. Now we have people who can live and work remotely, and now we have people who want to live in walkable villages like New Paltz, where we have a main street that's walkable and includes locally owned businesses. I feel like there are a few other things going on now, as opposed to what we were primarily concerned with not even that long ago, where it was just the permanent residents were being squeezed out because the only game in town was the income investors jamming college students into the community.
I would agree, Tim. I think that's, it's basically tied to Airbnb, right? That just changed the whole game.
Well, it's not just Airbnb. I would also say it's, now that we know how to use video conferencing software, and we know when to hit mute and when to, unmute meetings, like now we know how to work remotely. And I think part of that's a function of COVID. And then additionally, some people actually prefer working remotely and, or don't need to go into their office as much. And FaceTime is not a requirement in as many jobs as it used to be. I think it's not just the short-term rental phenomenon. It's also, figuring out these hybrid models, because I think we're going to see more of that moving forward, even hopefully once we get past the pandemic challenges.
No, I would agree absolutely on all those points. And, I agree with the point you prefaced with, we've managed to create a really nice community to live in, and certain things like the River to Ridge Trail, they just add to the quality of life here, and people want to live here.
Yeah, it sounds like you're quoting from the grant application that I just submitted this afternoon to the Regional Economic Development Council. I was in a deep hole working on that for a while, and I just submitted it before the 4 p.m. deadline. I'll send it to you guys.
Well done.
It's that $10 million award that, it's very, it's unlikely we'll get. They'll probably award it to Yonkers or Beacon this time, but you got to be in it, and maybe at some point in the future we will receive an award.
I hope so. Let me open it up to my colleagues, because I'm only one person who read the material and thought about it. Sue, do you have perspectives you want to share?
No, I think it really sounds very reasonable. Especially if we can get more long-term rentals going. I
Mhm.
think that would be great.
Camilla, how about you?
I'm wondering if who would be the target audience for living in the ADUs, because they are fairly small from what I gathered. And I'm not sure it would, for example, alleviate the problem with young professionals or families not finding any place to live, or if it would help at all to maybe return some of the housing stock on the market for those young professionals and families.
Well, I can just share from personal experience. So, as I mentioned, I have an accessory apartment in my house. And I had a couple that lived in the accessory apartment, young professionals that lived here for 5 years. They were graduates. It's just like New York City living. I think young people, they're fine with a smaller unit. They're comfortable, and they're fine with a smaller unit because living in the village is appealing. You can walk to more places, you can get to the bus station. And then after they moved out, then I had a guy, a grown-up with a grown-up job. And he actually was only here for 1 year because of COVID, where his work didn't allow him to do anything in New York State because of the COVID restrictions. So he was sent out of state. He paid me rent the entire time, but basically lived in a completely different state. So my water bill was insanely low. I actually gave him $50 credits every quarter because I had no water bill that ordinarily he would have been responsible for. And now more recently, I have just a graduate student. So it's like I think there are plenty of young people. They have fewer things. They want less stuff. Even my current graduate student, she doesn't have a car. She's here in the village because she can live here comfortably without a car. I think that's the strength of our village, is that it's a uniquely walkable community. We really have the bones to encourage that lifestyle that even a lot of other communities, if they wanted to, they couldn't.
Mhm.
For sure.
Yeah. Chris, how about you? Thoughts?
I definitely feel both sides of, as far as like concerned, like part of me is just scared of short-term rentals in like any capacity, but it's obviously not realistic. But then also I see how a lot of people are looking for, I think, like Tim, your situation is almost like the ideal situation.
Yeah.
That this would aim towards, because it's like, I do understand where there's a lot of younger people that are trying to move actually back to the area after living here for like a little bit, and then they like went down to the city, did the whole thing. And there are a lot of people that, if the availability of one of the units would be helpful, and also it would be more incentive if you could get maybe a larger property and then essentially do what you're doing, Tim, which I think is great. So I see all sides of it. I think there's more benefits to I guess I see more benefits than I do, or I guess pros than cons. So
Thanks, Chris. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I think, Chris, you probably are closer to people for whom this might be really beneficial, in the sense that, you're a young professional, and I think you're still renting, right? Or you are renting. And, this is the problem, or this is the situation that I think the law is trying to address. Steve, what are your thoughts? Anything you?
I think the law as drafted is pretty good. I'd like to read it a few more times and just see if I can not pick holes in it, but see if there's anything anything there that doesn't fit. But I think as drafted, it's pretty good. I think the idea of ADUs is very good in the village. I think the idea to increase the number of housing units in this way is, it's not painless, but it's a pretty efficient use of resources and real estate. So I think I like the idea.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you raised that, because that was one of the things I wanted to say in favor. This does not increase sprawl. There may be an issue with parking, which I think we should also talk about, but it is efficient. It is relatively green in the sense that you're doing conversions rather than generally new construction. You're not tearing down things, so I think all of that was covered in the AARP pretty well, and I agree with it. So yeah. I wanted to just raise a couple of things. I mean, one would be an observation that the HPC actually approved one of these on Huguenot Street. This is probably something that maybe Sue and Camilla remember. I just don't even remember the timing, but the Highlands barn at the end of Huguenot Street was first approved as a barn, and then we approved and they got a permit for an accessory dwelling unit. So there's a precedent here.
I don't think they ever built it though, Tom.
No, they didn't.
Oh, they didn't. Okay,
No.
I lost the thread of that, but
No,
you're
was correct that it was approved.
It was approved.
I think they ended up objecting to having to pay a recreation fee.
Ah,
Mm.
okay. Well, let me remove that one. The other that I'm aware of, which in effect is an ADU, I don't know the street address, and I'm afraid I'm just going to say whose application it was, but Don Kerr on maybe Oakwood or Mill Rock.
Yeah, Don Kerr lives on Mill Rock. I would agree that Don Kerr's is an example of an ADU that's used as, because he does short-term rentals using that ADU. And I would cite that as an example similar to the example that I like there's a part of me that says, let's have no short-term rentals whatsoever, because we don't want that kind of transient visitor. They don't really contribute anything to the community. Like there's no way they can volunteer on the HPC. But then again, I think about that my friend's mom, who she's a senior, and I think it gives that individual like almost like a fun mini job being a host. And I think Don and Lisa Kerr actually approach it similarly. I think they kind of enjoy hosting people, and what's unique about New Paltz is like our rental market is, our long-term rental market is so robust that it's not like you're making so much more money short-term renting versus just long-term renting, because there's expense to flipping the place and preparing it for new guests. I think it's very different from even more rural places in Ulster County, where you probably can make more money doing short terms than you can do long-term renting.
Right, because there's a softer long-term rental market in those places. Yeah. No, I really don't disagree with that, Tim, but I think I'm a little closer to Chris's point that I still feel like, I guess I'll preface this by saying, like a lot of people, I love being able to go on Airbnb and stay somewhere that I want to stay. Like I love the user side of it, but increasingly, like a lot of things that are good for consumers, they're not necessarily always good for the community that hosts them. So I guess in a general way, let's be really careful that we're not opening the door to more problems around short-term rentals. The other thing that I wanted to say, and I guess we don't have infinite time tonight, but really our charge is to think about not really even the politics or the economics of it, but the architecture of this. And so I had a couple of thoughts I wanted to share with Tim and the HPC. One is that I think we want to be really careful what we're doing to buildings. Just a couple of days ago, I drove through, I won't even say what community, but a nearby community where I took a picture of this once beautiful large Victorian home that had 5 front doors, just just utterly destroyed the architectural integrity of this place. And that was right next to another place that had 2 mismatched doors, so in this community, obviously there was some period where turning homes into apartments or creating ADUs was something they were doing or they weren't policing. And they're going to have to live with the consequences of a lot of architectural destruction. I think we want to be really careful about anything that is, I have a fairly short list of things just to kind of keep it simple. One is I'm really suspicious of adding any front door that faces the street side. To me, that's just asking for trouble in the practice. In many cases, you can do an interior vestibule. Like if the idea is that everybody enters from the front, which wouldn't be my suggestion anyway. There are ways to do an interior vestibule. Yes, you lose some square footage, but you preserve what we're trying to preserve with the HPC, which is the architectural integrity of the street-facing side. So that would be one thing that I think we really want to be careful of. Number 2 is I really am concerned about easing setbacks for the purposes of creating ADUs. I'm much more comfortable personally with ADUs that efficiently use what's already built, and that could include a garage conversion, but adding square footage, pushing out to property lines really worries me, Tim, because I think you're inviting light trespass, you're inviting noise issues, you're creating density in, I think, a not very intelligent way, line to line.
But isn't that in this draft law? That
Not
even
the one that I saw permitted easing of setbacks. Now it may be that the one we're looking at has gone through some iterations.
Yeah, I mean, because I feel, because so first, I mean, this was the whole reason that I reached out to you initially, was that idea of like having more than one door, because I wanted your opinion on that, because that
Right.
was kind of like a common ADU decision that crafters of ADU laws have to consider. So, I'm it'd be great to get, if you guys as a board have an opinion about that, relay that to us, and then we can make that super clear in
Yeah.
our draft. But
So
I felt
Tim, I'm
like,
speaking to L, actually, if you look on the screen. The current setback in the village is 25 feet from the rear, 12 and a half.
so I got some feedback from someone else who has a great deal of experience with ADUs, and like he gave me some other language that I think might not be in the version that you're looking at. I don't know,
Okay.
but these things were absolutely considered in terms of, and they were even making a distinction of like the setback should be considered differently for a 2-story versus a 1-story for some of the reasons that you just identified. Like if you have a 2-story ADU, the setback should be whatever the setbacks are, and then it might be different for a 1-story ADU.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I can actually see that M has followed the suggestion that I made a month ago, 1 exterior front entrance. I think that's that's what you originally asked me about, and how we got talking about bringing it to the HPC, because I think that feels much more comfortable, that, the accessory entrance will be at the rear or side. And that, I think, is definitely better. I think I'm up to my 3rd thing. Tim, I think we should also really think about the parking consequences, because you've been lucky enough to have people that don't need a car and maybe even
No,
know.
my tenants have had cars. I've only had one that did not have a car.
Oh, okay, okay. But we do have an issue, and especially during snow, they're not emergencies, but snow restrictions, these cars have to go somewhere. And I don't think we want to encourage more lot coverage. I don't think we want to encourage, more land given to driveways. I don't know how you deal with that. I mean, it may be that ADUs can be, ADUs are possible only with certain pre-existing conditions that make them tenable. I don't know exactly how I would break that down to.
That's one that I'm going to disagree with. I feel strongly that we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot if we require parking. I feel like that's an important consideration.
I can see that. I can definitely see that we could, shoot ourselves in the foot in one sense. But then, what do you do with the cars? And what do you do about a 400 square foot accessory unit where two professionals with a car each and maybe a motorcycle? Where do those things go?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for we really need as a community to like stop leading with what we're going to do with cars. I think we should encourage ADUs, and we shouldn't make having parking spots a stipulation in terms of whether you can have an ADU. I feel like we'll end up like not getting where we need to go if we require all that parking. I mean, there's like case after case and like Strong Towns article after Strong Towns article about how communities just regularly make bad decisions about, feeling so nervous about having enough parking spaces.
Do you think we're okay for parking in the village?
Yes. Yeah, I feel like we need to stop accommodating cars as much as we do.
But isn't that accommodating cars?
Well, we're accommodating a car lifestyle by requiring parking. It's like I'm a big follower of Strong Towns, and it's like every single day they come up with articles about and blog posts about this topic.
I don't want to dig in too much on one thing, and it actually wasn't even at the top of my list. I think the facade and ingress and egress was really the top of my list, but we can keep talking about it, and maybe at some point the HPC will just talk among ourselves.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Kim, I definitely agree with the principle. Like, I don't think community planning should be built around cars, but I feel like adding dwelling units without thinking about cars is going to create car problems, not reduce them. I think the last thing I wanted to say, and then I definitely want to stop talking, is that in general, I feel a lot more comfortable with a partition style ADU where, a dwelling structure is used efficiently rather than added onto.
Right. So you get a huge benefit in that you can do that, as of right, as opposed to something that involves expanding.
Right.
Foundation would require planning board review.
Right. Exactly. And that may also speak to that car issue a little bit, right? If the overall square footage isn't changing, there's a reasonable chance that the car needs don't change because the elderly person living in the house has one car or no car, and the tenant has one car, and that could be fine.
Right. And during a planning board review is when that concern of like, are we creating too much new impervious space, or, you know, are we going to create too much parking congestion? I think that's where those conversations happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Tim, what's the timeline for discussion of this? Like, you know, are there going to be a couple of chances to have us weigh in?
We've had this public hearing open for like 5-6 months, some like insanely long amount of time. Both this and then the change to the B1 and B2 zones.
Okay.
So any sort of feedback, yeah, I mean, if you're in the midst of working on getting us feedback, you can give us a heads up and we'll just continue to wait for that. But
yeah, I think we would like to do that. I mean, this is really our first pass at something that's, you know, pretty significant. For
so
what our,
we'll just anticipate here, you know, getting your feedback.
that sounds great. That's great.
Yeah, I have to jump because I have a lacrosse meeting that starts now.
Okay,
You know,
I hope it's
kids
not
lacrosse.
outdoors because
No.
the skies just
Starting
opened
to
up
rain.
on Grove Street.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
hearing it. I'm hearing all that rain. I just got to get on this like youth lacrosse league call.
Hey, Tim, thank you very much for your time. We will get you something at least in a preliminary way. I don't know how much time we'll have to talk about it tonight, but you know,
Sounds good.
we appreciate being invited in. We'll get you
Okay.
something soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ryan, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Oh, terrific. Thank you very much for your patience. The timing was almost perfect, but not quite perfect. You were first on the agenda, and then we just had to move through, and then we hit our time with the mayor.
Yep.
That was the mayor, if you weren't clear.
Yep, I got.
But
I don't know him personally, but I saw the name and I could get the gist from the conversation.
yep. Well, welcome to the meeting. I take it that you don't have a baby yet. You look pretty calm.
Yeah, so far that baby's pretty comfortable. Megan, on the other hand, is not at all.
Yeah.
So, any day now.
Well, we wish you well. We really do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for creating this COA in such quick time. I mean, I think it was less than 24 hours that you had this. Just to review, we had already said that the roofing is like for like. And so just to kind of educate you on HPC principles, whenever it's like for like material, we really appreciate hearing it. And it's a good way to double check that it is actually like for like.
Right.
I mean, for example, like not all windows are the same. So if you were contemplating a window replacement, we'd really want to see that it's the same style.
Sure.
Or have a conversation about why the style is going to change. But roofing's usually pretty easy if the color's not changing and nothing is changing. So that's already approved. And then the paint color, you know, tends to be a pretty low stakes discussion for the HPC, but we try to have it, or we do have it on Huguenot Street. So I think with that in mind, we can just go to the samples that are in your application.
Yep.
And Ryan, if you want to just walk us through what you envision and where the colors are going to go.
Sure. Okay, so if you're looking at the samples, the color on the bottom right corner, the Rockport gray, that is going to be the primary color of the house. So the siding, the principal siding on the home, on the building. And then the Acadia white would be around the windows. So that would trim out the window and any door trim as well. And the maple leaf red would be an accent used only on the front door at this time. And then the last color, I'm sorry, I don't, the dark gray, yeah, the Amherst gray, that's going to be the decking. So the floor, the decking of the porches. So we have on the front of the building, the covered porch, and then on the rear of the building, we have a double decker porch. So the decks will be that color.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you. That's really clear.
Yeah, there's actually a house. We were walking today on Huguenot Street with our son, and I think it's not Mulberry. What's the I can't remember the one where the Salvation Army is, that intersection. But coming back, yes, Broadhead. That's it. Thank you. Closer to Huguenot Street, there's a house on the south side that really follows pretty closely. It was unintentional, but this scheme is pretty close. I said to my wife, that looks very similar. And she's like, yeah, I think you're right. So there is some precedent for it, but we'd be glad to hear your input if there's any.
Sure. We usually turn to Camilla at times like this. Camilla?
Oh, I just had one question, because the house right now is two-toned. One part is white, the horizontal siding, and then the shingles are a kind of reddish color. So in your proposal, everything on the exterior would be the lighter gray, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So the horizontal siding and the shingles will be consistent.
That sounds good. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I'll just say, Ryan, I think you're making a really good move. When I went back and had a serious look at the house as it is, that brown red at the top creates a kind of top heaviness that I wouldn't personally opt for. And it sounds like you saw that problem too.
Yeah. It's an unusual combination, and the colors. The house, it's pretty tired. It has good bones, but it needs to be refreshed.
This seems like a really thoughtful scheme. I think that the image we're looking at gives you a pretty good sense of what the outcome will be. Is there anyone who wanted to comment or ask questions?
I would just say, I think it'll be a big improvement.
I think so too.
Yeah, I do too. I do. I don't know if you've already talked to your painter, but if not, you might ask about priming that dark upper color, because I think if not, you may be inviting trouble if it's not maybe even tinted primed. That's a good way to go.
Yeah, we intend to, so we don't get any telegraphing through or any so it could be it'll be a higher quality job if we take the time to prime the dark brown. Yeah,
I know I would do it that way.
Yep.
This is great, Ryan. It's a really well put together application. You did it, in just record time, and we're grateful.
Yep.
Is there any further discussion before I invite a motion to approve? Anyone care to make that motion?
I move we accept the proposal as is.
Seconded by Camilla. Okay, great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is that a yes?
Aye.
Okay. So Ryan, that's honestly how easy it is, at least for, I don't mean that your project is low stakes in your eyes, but it's not an addition. It's not a major change to a structure. And we really appreciate it. Valerie communicates approval immediately to the to the building department and copies you. So literally you can start priming or scraping tomorrow if you want.
Thank you.
Yeah. And good luck with the baby on the way.
Okay.
We hope that goes smoothly and
Appreciate
easily for both of you, especially your wife. And please call on us in any way, whatever we can do. We don't have any purview over interior changes. So if you want to change kitchen cabinets, it wouldn't be us, or move a bathroom, it wouldn't be us, but anything exterior should come to us, and then we can decide if it needs a hearing or not.
Okay.
Great.
Well, it's very nice to meet you guys, and we look forward to getting to know you better over time.
Yep. Yep, very good. Thank you
Okay.
very much. Good luck with the project.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Great, so that's approved, everybody. I guess Bill won't be with us tonight, so it doesn't look like we're going to get much news on the Ann Oliver house. Val, I did not look at ZB 2101. Was there something germane that might tell us how that's moving along?
I think those were original materials related to RFP, so I'm not honestly sure that there are more recent materials posted there. I was hoping Bill would let us know because he did
Yeah.
indicate last month that the property transfer had happened and that we just needed to move ahead with the RFP. Steve, have you heard anything?
I have not.
Um,
He's got my email, and I mean, I walk by a couple times a week in the morning on my walk. The building is still there. I mean, it doesn't seem to have been broken into, but nothing's going on from the exterior, and nothing has come my way in my mailbox.
Okay.
I think maybe my response would be, I'll follow up with an email to Bill, copied to Val and to Steve, just asking if there are any updates and kind of putting your email once again on his radar.
Thank you.
It's taken a long, long time.
Well, I was like, when we met in July, it was like the ink was supposed to be drying on the legal aspect of this. So having not heard anything, I guess it's still not dry.
I don't think it is. But I'll find out. Why don't we push off a discussion of accessory dwelling units for just a little bit and do some of the routine stuff now. I also think we probably want to see about the zoning plan amendments, the B1 and B2. So let's push that down as well. Item number A4. I think everybody's aware that the village board has been talking about the good cause eviction initiative for quite a while. I don't know if we really have a stake in that, and I really just wanted to lead by asking if anybody thinks we do. You know, we don't ordinarily take positions on things that don't concern us. We've maybe made an exception or two over the years, but I don't know that we have a role. Shall we leave? Anybody want to speak to the position that we do have a role? Okay, let's just leave that off the HPC. And we can determine the others later. Does anybody have a really good idea for the Church Street Elementary School weather vane? This goes back 2 months, maybe. There's a historic weather vane that emerged out of somebody's garage or basement. And it would be nice to find it a good home, but I don't really have any great ideas.
This is what the link went to, what I'm showing you now.
Are we meant to be seeing something, Val?
Yeah, I get, oh, maybe this is not, this screen share is not coming across. All right, so,
We're still on the agenda.
okay, so I guess this went to a different window. I'm sorry, and I don't think this
Okay.
is catching it. And I think I may screw something up if I hit the link in the agenda.
Okay.
So I will
maybe,
encourage you all to do that yourselves if you don't mind.
yeah, let's not spend too much time on this. I mean, I think it's sort of beyond our purview, but I would like to be helpful. My suggestion was, you know, some public space. I don't know if like somewhere in Peace Park or Hasbrook Park, but you know, it's a piece of New Paltz history.
Would there be a place to put it on the Ann Oliver house?
On top of it,
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
you know,
I'm guessing if it came off an elementary school, it might be pretty big,
yeah.
but I don't know. Sue, it seems like as good an idea as I can come up with. We can offer that. Why don't we just do this, everyone? When the meeting's over and you have a couple of minutes, click through that link, see if anything comes to mind, and just share it with the HPC if it seems like an idea. Okay. Maybe we can move on to B2, because I would actually like to get that wrapped up tonight if we can manage. Let's see. Thanks, Val. That's great.
Yeah, this is going to show comments, which I was hoping not to, but but there they are.
That's all right. I think everybody had a chance to look this over. I'm sort of feeling like I want to clarify what role we do and don't have here. When it comes to Huguenot Historic Street District and landmark properties, we actually do have purview. We have right of refusal, as I guess we know from the case at 130. That should be our right to do. When we're outside, I think we're a consultative body to the building department. And I'm not sure that the language here makes that totally clear, but I'm also really hoping that soon we'll have a second historic district, and that would mean that the language would have to be amended because that second district would be subject to our purview and our regulation. Does anybody see it differently? I mean, I don't really see a way that we have any power of refusal beyond outside the historic district and landmarked houses. I don't think we have any power except to make a vigorous case to the building department, which then can follow our advice, which I hope would happen. Does everybody see it that way?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that the language can be tinkered with to make that a little clearer. What about the other substance of the guide? Did anybody see anything that didn't seem clear to you?
Tom, there was the one thing that I mentioned that Scott had sort of emphasized last time, but didn't seem to note an omission when he did his read through, and that was what he called the umbilical cord that goes from the bottom of the compressor and drains and may sometimes have to come to the front of the property, I think is the way he explained it, just based on the siting. So I think he suggested that we have some kind of accommodation for that, the visibility factor, if that were the case. But he didn't note that when he went through his last review, so maybe it's immaterial.
Well, I do remember that. I think everybody does that. That's the trickiest line because it has to have a certain pitch to work.
Right, and the length of the line, I think, was an issue too.
That's right. It has
limitations of the
limit.
The length, yeah.
Could you scroll to the second page, Val? I tried in a general way without getting into the weeds to get into that in item 4, where I added 4 individual lines can be strategically placed.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is something we could discuss. I think I made kind of a conscious decision not to get into that level of technicality, but to say that these are separable lines, and one might go out the front because it has to, but that doesn't mean that all 4 have to. I don't know. We never actually heard from Scott whether there are smaller line heights, but I guess we can circle back and see if there are 1-inch wide line heights that hide just the drain.
I think, let's see. He said they can be as small as 2.5 inches wide by 2.5 inches deep. That was what he said last time.
Thanks, that's helpful. What do you all think? I mean, it's easy enough to add something specific about drain lines.
Steve, I don't remember. You said you had a system like this, right? Do you have that issue with the umbilical cord, the copper pipe?
We don't, because everything got run internally.
Okay.
So there's nothing. I mean, there's a in the basement there is a drain line out that drains right above the propane tank. And there's another one. It's noticeable when you're using the dehumidifying capacity. But we, other than a very small drain emerging from the foundation, it's just not there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, we were very lucky to have that opportunity to install in that manner. We understand that certainly a lot of people don't, and they're just retrofitting.
Yeah.
But across the street on 30, those line hides, that was just kind of slapped up the first time around. So there is a wide range of possibilities.
Okay.
And just another thing that Scott mentioned about Central Hudson, maybe having new regulations about the placement of the units in
Right.
relation to the roof pitch.
Yeah.
And that could cause some issues for us, perhaps, if, the placement from our point of view would require the units to be at the back of the house, but if the roof pitch would not allow it, what would we do then? Or how do we go around that problem? I'm not sure.
I followed up with Scott and said, we're really at your service to advocate for placement that makes sense in a preservation way. And he knows that we're willing to write that letter or make that call. Why don't I do this, Camilla? I can circle back to him and see where that Central Hudson initiative is.
Okay.
I think it's not that it's prohibited, but you don't get the Central Hudson rebate if it's not, or they were considering that. Yeah.
That rebate is helpful.
Yes. Yeah. You wouldn't want to do it otherwise. But I can reach out to Scott and see if we can get a little clarity on that.
Would you mind also asking him about the copper drain pipe and its placement, just in case there is something he does want to
Okay. So what could I ask that by saying, do you feel that item 4 sufficiently covers the umbilical cord drain pipe?
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay.
Because I don't know.
I did remember that, Val, but it just felt like kind of getting into the weeds.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I was misunderstanding him, but I wasn't envisioning it as something that was in the line hide. I thought it was something that would actually be visible, and depending on where it had to exit and drain out of, its visual impact could be different from what the cables that are inside the line hide.
I'll get some clarity. In the unit that we have, which also, like Steve's, doesn't have a line hide, it just pops out the wall. Mm-hmm. It's like a 1-inch tube with 6 inches of lead. But I'll ask that so that we're being accurate.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Can everybody remember back to that AARP document, the ABCs of ADUs? I thought that there were some nice schematics of buildings, and that's really what I was thinking for these diagrams or photos, rather than get into photos and rights and all of that. Really what we're trying to express is put it here, ideally, and if not, put it here, but don't put it here. And just simple schematics get that across really easily. I don't know if people have strong feelings about that, but at one point Scott kind of offered some photos, which was attractive, but I think it's like a bird's eye view of schematic houses, or maybe an elevation view, but just expressing, in a really streamlined way. Here's the house, here's the unit, here's the street. This is a good placement, that's a bad placement. This is a placement we can discuss.
I will say, when we met with Scott, I don't want to get his name wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
When we met with Scott, and he showed us the photos of that one house that repainted them to like match the siding, that, and like he showed us side by side of before what it looked like, and then after it had been painted to match what, like the color of the house it was sitting on. It definitely, I feel like that's when it kind of sank into me about, I mean, not using that specific image, but just like in general, as far as a visual aid is concerned, that it really like put it in perspective, kind of hit home after that for me, because it was like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
Just seeing it right there for you all often helps. So
We can ask for that. I don't know where we would get a photo other than his. I mean, he might have a stock of them. Let's see, I'd also kind of like to keep this to 2 pages if we can. Like, it seems to me a front and a back might be ideal rather than going really long.
And maybe just including line drawings instead of more elaborate photographs. That should communicate the intent pretty well, I think.
I hope so, yeah.
People are quite visual. It might be more appropriate in some ways.
Right. Okay. So the other question I had is, how are we going to handle someone who lives on Huguenot Street, is siting it to the rear, and we know in advance that there's no issue there? So let's say that Steve or Sue decides to get one of these and reads this guide, says, okay, I get it. The way to fast track this is to put it at the rear of the house, not visible to the street. How do we want to handle that? Because I think my impulse is to say, well, fill out the form, but we don't even have to make you wait for a meeting. If that's what you're going to do, we can kind of, a priori just say, that's fine. That's what I would like to do, but we don't really do that for anything else, right? This is not like for like. So I don't know if we're on legal grounds to do that, even though the client would probably really appreciate, quickly filling out a form, showing where it's located, and hearing by email, that's fine, go ahead.
That's part of my concern too, is that it is sort of out of our usual way of operating. But the other thing is, I would really want to get Corey's input on this, because they do have to issue a permit for these. And so I worry a little bit about not having some kind of a paper trail. And maybe he's okay with just doing an email, approval, but I would want to know that, I think, and just, see what works best for them. If there are a lot of these, maybe they'd prefer to have some kind of a form they can go back to.
I think probably they would. I mean, that's good government, just to, I mean, could we imagine an addendum page? So, the client fills out page 1 of the COA and then skips to a little diagram where they draw in the house and draw in the compressor and show where the lines go. And then we file it, then we're done. That seems to me least work for us, least delay for the client, if we're allowed to do that.
That sounds good, Tom. But
Yeah.
sometimes though, even if the client plans a certain way, it may turn out that the unit cannot be installed on that location. And then what do we do?
Yeah, that's
You know,
right.
if the permit is filed in a certain way and then it ends up being somewhere completely different.
I
There
would
should
want
be some
to see
kind of
what-
preparation.
That's a really good point, Camille. I mean, unfortunately, that could also happen with a full review,
Mhm.
right? Except that it might give us a chance to say, you know, this is valid only if the compressor and the lines go where you say they do. And if your installer tells you otherwise, then you have to come back, which I'm sure is going to cause resentment. But
Well, I think it could cause resentment, but I mean, it's just, there are very few ways to control this once some permit or approval is issued. But I think, you know, if I think a statement could be made, if this is not going to be installed as designed, you have to at least, you know, come back to us.
Which is really the way it should be for anything that we give our approval to, you know, that they really don't have the right to then turn around and
right,
do something that's, you know, not quite what we approved.
right. I mean, any building
I
inspector
agree.
will tell you that that does happen, right? In the, you know,
Oh,
the
yeah.
doing of something, minor adjustments have to be made, and there's a process for noting those amendments. But, you know, we're really only after one thing, which is it shouldn't be in public view. So if it is, then it's a problem. Then it's not really approved.
Right, if it's 6 feet off the ground instead of 1 foot off the ground in the back of the house,
Right.
you know, that's, but every case could be different. And, you know, everything, you know, 6 feet off the ground or 10 feet off the ground might be visible to people, you know,
Right.
so, I mean, we can, I guess, give conditional approval.
Yeah. I mean, we could, if there's going to be a supplement page, that page could very clearly state that, you know, variations on what's approved aren't approved. And we can just do our best to control that.
I think that we're going to have a lot of these applications for installation coming up. I mean, this is an incredible technology. This is something that is a thing, and it's, you know, as people, if Central Hudson's not running gas down your street and you need to upgrade your heating ventilation system, this is something that really jumps out at people. So I think this is really going to come to us a lot from applications, and, you know, we can certainly amend this in the future, but I think this is a great step. You know, we can't plan for every contingency of how people are going to, you know, apply this, and the technology will continue to change, but I think this is a great place for us to start.
Mm-hmm. You know what, just, I agree, Steve. I mean, I've been sort of banging on this drum for a couple of years that we really need to be ahead of, I mean, we're not ahead of this technology, it's here, but ahead of people adopting it, because I'm hearing from Scott and others that, you know, new houses don't have furnaces anymore. They have a bunch of these. One thing that I think we could maybe put into this document that would be an improvement is the strong suggestion that they discuss the placement with their contractor before doing the application, right? So that you hope we eliminate that thing where the contractor comes in and says, oh, well, that can't be done, it's got to go here. Again, you can't stop everything, but if you make that really clear that the ideal time to make this application is after your contractor has looked at this document, come up with a suitable location that works technically, then we should eliminate too many problems. Yeah. Does that seem like a good addition?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just going to make a note of that. Before submission. I mean, you know, that kind of has a logic, right? You wouldn't, if you're doing an extension on your house, you would talk to your contractor. you would have drawings, right?
Yeah, have to present the drawings, so they should be presenting, the plan to
Yeah.
us.
Okay. Does everybody feel good about the document and the couple of changes that we've suggested or will discuss?
Mhm.
Okay, so I will be in touch with Scott and see if he can give us some guidance on the umbilical cord and where we are with Central Hudson. And I'll make that little change about having the contractor propose something that then goes in the application. Good. Okay. I'll make sure that we have one more look at this before we print it up and publish it. And is everybody comfortable with little schematic diagrams?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I wanted just to draw your attention to everything in item 3. I'm really trying to get through this meeting, everybody. It's a lot. I have a little bit of update on a couple of them. One is 3E, which is the Chestnut Square project. I got a call from Mohammed who asked, and I made it clear I was answering only for myself. He was curious whether I thought, he really wanted to know what we thought. And I said, I will tell you what I think, and I'll discuss it in September with the group, but whether some small balconies to the rear would or wouldn't be a good idea. He was thinking something of about 5 by 10 feet or so. And my impulse was to say, I think that is a good idea. I wasn't so much thinking of what residents living near the structure might have to say about that, but I was thinking from a tenant point of view to have a little balcony, especially if the railing was something along the lines of what Steve's thinking, where you're not getting a lot of mass and you get to look out on trees. I thought that would be really good for tenants. And I thought it would maybe break up some of the massiveness of the structure by having balconies. But I promised him I would raise that question and see if others agreed or disagreed, and I'll be glad to report back whatever we say.
I think it would be a very good idea. Every time I walk to Village Pizza or Stewart's and cut through the rail trail, the paved rail trail, I try to envision what that would look like, that building there, instead of the auto repair place. And I think that it would take advantage of the natural view. I think it would make the spaces more desirable or more aesthetically pleasing. And I think it would be, I don't immediately see any downsides at all.
I'm trying to remember the rear side of Zero Place. Do they have some balconies on that side?
No, I don't think
They
so.
had some balconies on some elevation, don't they? I remember some from a plan.
No, I think those came away. There were little
Maybe.
balconettes.
Maybe.
But I
Because I
think
was thinking
they-
if they had them, it would be one way to connect the structures in a way.
Oh, yeah.
Relate them.
I guess the only issue that could come up is, late night activities on the balconies.
Mhm.
And sound
Right.
carries quite a way away at night. So people living nearby might not be as happy about.
Right. Or living next door.
Yeah,
I mean, like the next floor down or,
right.
yeah. Sue and Chris, any thoughts for me to report back?
I think Camilla's point is a valid point. I'm sure, Steve, you've now realized that, in the summer, we can hear the music from downtown.
Oh, the Groovy Blueberry, yeah,
Yeah.
and Arrowwood. Yeah, we can sit out in the backyard.
Yep. So, maybe if there was some I think in general, the idea of the balconies back there would definitely be a plus to the apartments. But maybe trying to have him incorporate something where they can't have music playing out on the deck after 10 p.m. or whatever, something
Mhm.
along those lines. I know it gets tricky, but
Yeah, and that ended up being quite a hang up for Zero Place
it did.
because of the roof deck, party deck.
The yoga deck.
The yoga deck. Yeah, we'll see. Chris,
Right.
what are your thoughts?
Is there like, it's not going to affect the affordability of it, is it? Like, does a unit go up like a
Well,
considerable
probably,
amount?
yeah. I mean,
So I'm just worried about it. You know, if they slap a balcony on every single one, does then it become luxury apartments instead of like, you know, unless they already are luxury apartments? I guess I don't really have an issue with that either, but it's like, I'm just wondering what that would do, if anything, like, because I mean, Southside has balconies, but obviously that's not like too expensive.
right.
I just don't want like a flood of like really nice, or like I don't know. I hope that a lot of these projects incorporate affordable options.
Yeah, I don't remember hearing that this one does. There might be one unit set aside.
Yeah.
I don't remember. But yeah, I mean, it stands to reason that, you know, it's going to add to the overall cost undoubtedly, and that eventually gets reflected. But you raised.
I mean, I think it would look nice. You know.
I do too. I mean, I think it would help with the mass, because we did have some concerns that it's a pretty long stretch of housing. I mean, they've broken it up in the front, but I don't so much remember what they were doing in the back. But Chris, you raised it. I don't know if you intended to, but what I heard was maybe not all units have to have balconies. So maybe just some strategic distribution, and maybe those units cost $50 a month more, or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. You know, I mean, I obviously don't really have a place to tell them, you know, what they should be charging and stuff like that. I mean, it might be in a good interest of everyone to cut down on pretty much all the things that have been mentioned. Like, you know, instead of every unit having a balcony and then just like throwing a football from one to the next one. And, you know, just, I mean, it's something they could consider, but I guess my main concern is like the cost. I don't want them to just be like,
yeah.
But it's also, again, I'm not, you know, it's not my business. So
No.
Literally.
No, it isn't. Okay, I'll report that back. You know, I don't even know if they'll go through. He was just floating an idea, and I said I would be glad to talk about it. The other one that I wanted to, actually there are two. The Mannheim Muse, I haven't heard anything recently, but the planning board definitely acknowledged our input and our concerns about saving the existing house, at least the older part of it. You know, I don't know where it's going to go, because we're in a position of offering guidance and that's it. So it's kind of in the hands of the planning board unless they decide to come back to us. And everybody, there was one other thing that's not on the agenda, but literally yesterday or today, I guess both days, I heard from Alan Ross, the architect who is working on 107 Main Street, which is the, I've already forgotten the name of the bar that used to be Murphy's.
Murphy's.
Yeah. And he asked to have a site visit or a meeting with me, but I said, sure, but I think it should be a site visit. I guess the ZBA has asked for a statement of no objection from the HPC. So that has not come to me directly from the ZBA, but from Alan Ross. I will try to figure out, I'm going to meet with him either tomorrow or Friday to see what they have planned. And, you know, we only have an advisory role here. So, you know, it may be that next month we're going to have to consider it. It may be we have to rush something through and try to give an opinion to the ZBA. But I wanted to let you know that that sort of, you know, came to us very quickly, or very recently rather. Anybody have a question about that or the other things?
Do you have any inclination, Tom, about the scope of the project? Is it going to alter the building?
I don't have any clue. I don't know anything about it.
This is what is to be the quote piano bar, unquote.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I will say that I have some confidence that Alan's really sensitive to preservation issues. So fingers crossed, whatever's planned is sensitive, but I really don't know at all. He had offered to come to the meeting and I said, I think we just really have too much tonight. And I think we do, we're still not done. Val, do you have anything on A through F that I don't have anything. Do you have anything that would update us?
No, really only the references to various documents, and they're not even always the most, like, minutes of the most recent meetings. Sometimes those are not posted by the time I'm putting the agenda together. So even my references here may not be the most up to date.
Okay. Well, let's leave that. Things will come to us if we need it. Let's press on. Everybody, I knew this was going to be a long meeting, and it is. I hope everybody's okay for a little while longer. On item 4, so basically what I wanted to talk about tonight is to decide whether our strategy should be to approach the village board and just say simply, we want a downtown district along Huguenot Street lines. Let's just duplicate the process and the designation for the downtown district. So that's question A. Question B is, if we want to do that, do we want to just stick with exactly what the National and State Register district is, or do we want to think about making the downtown district go out to the end of Main Street? So it'd be the entirety of Main Street from the bridge to the town border, and then everything that's within the state and national district. So those are my two questions. I guess A has to come first. Do we feel like that's the strategy for this moment?
So where, sorry, the jurisdiction would be from the, like, starting at the river, at the bridge.
Yeah, it's basically bridge to, like, almost Asian fusion.
Okay.
If you know, that building is town, I'm pretty sure. I know that we never approved it. So it's pretty much, that's the line. Chris, the pre-existing state and national district doesn't go that far. It only goes up to, like, Prospect. And then the rest of Main Street is not in the district. And I know that Tim early on just really wanted Main Street to be designated. And I kind of see the sense of that, even though Main Street, as you get further from the river, it becomes less historically significant, but still it's our Main Street. So I kind of see the logic of that. If we were in a room, I'd be reading body language, but I can't. So can I just go around, Sue? What do you think about this idea of going after the downtown district first and then leaving the broader stuff for later?
Yeah. I think at this point that we just have to kind of bite the bullet, and my personal opinion is that we should do it. And then if we got shot down, then we'll just have to go back to the drawing board. I also like the idea of extending it. You know, I think that's a lot to ask for, but it would be fantastic if we could get it.
Gotcha. How about you, Camilla?
Well, I agree with Sue, especially since maybe the new zoning changes might affect areas from Prospect Street on towards the downtown area. And if we could have any input about what goes up there and what kind of building heights will be approved there or are approved there, and what kind of usage is allowed there, it would be great if we could have a say in that.
Yeah,
I feel like with the new zoning, what already happened on Main Street with the loss of a lot of residential housing, old Victorian homes, it's just going to maybe perpetuate all the way to the downtown area now.
Yeah, I agree. I hadn't really fully thought about that, but I agree with you, Camilla.
And I think we've all driven through cities or towns that has a teeny little historic district, but in order to get to it, you're driving past a whole lot of junk. You know? And then when you finally get to the historic district, it's almost, you know, it's like, well, that was really no big deal. You know, why did I drive this far to come see, you know, 3 blocks or 4 blocks?
Yeah.
I would hate to have that happen any more than it already has happened in New Paltz.
I think that's a really good point, Sue. Steve, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think we should seek to have some jurisdiction all the way to Asian fusion. I mean, if we're shot down, then there's a smaller district. But, you know, my wife, Christine, is on the Shade Tree Commission in the village. And, you know, I think about all the little components that make a beautiful village. And, you know, the design review board is part of it. And this is the village. And I think, you know, adding trees. I mean, I know I've read her files and seen, you know, permits to cut things down and things don't get planted again. I think a little more holistic view of things in a larger footprint would be good. So I think this should be our purview.
Again, that's really nicely put. You know, we're not operating alone, but we're a significant part of what could be a really transformative kind of change. I mean, obviously change is transformative. A really significant transformation of Main Street, and we should be at the table, I think. Chris, what are your thoughts?
I pretty much agree with everybody. I don't see the why not, if it, you know, why not to ask to Asian fusion. Then that would kind of cover, it's not much in between from like Asian fusion to like where La Bella, like that is. So it's kind of a nice, that would be a nice, feels kind of natural.
You know, the current awareness shop strikes me as, you know, if that boutique hotel goes up, then I think the awareness shop is vulnerable. you know, I mean, then that's a pretty significant structure. That's one of the outstanding examples of, you know, turn of the century architecture. Everybody, that sounds like consensus. I mean, that's how I feel too. And what we'll keep in mind is we're going to try our best to take it up to the, you know, to Asian Fusion or wherever that line falls exactly. We've got the strength of the National and State Register for everything else. That seems pretty intuitive and obvious. And we'll just try our best to make that the initiative, knowing that then there's going to be a part 2 for the rest of the community, which really, you know, probably could take the form of, you know, certificates of no objection. Like, I don't think that we're as invested in most of the other neighborhoods, so we can really streamline that process and just guard against bad things happening rather than, you know, see ourselves as curating what does. I'll try to get an appointment with the village board as soon as possible, and I'll present that. Val, that's going to mean probably needing your help to locate that elusive digital map or scan of the downtown district. I know we have it somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easily read because there is a lot of very small print on it, and it's a big area.
Yeah.
But yes, I will see what I'll see what I can find. I think it's a really large format document, which makes it hard to share.
Oh, okay. Well, we can be creative about thumb drives or something like that. Okay. Everybody, that's great. Sue, it's over to you, Huguenot Street. If you have any news.
Just that Steve and Val, we missed you last Saturday.
I'm sorry. I was working on minutes.
Oh, okay. They had a Huguenot Street gathering, outdoor potluck gathering, and it was at my house. And at one point, and was outside, all totally outside. We had gorgeous weather. It was perfect. Got to meet a lot of the new people on the street, which was wonderful. And at one point, I counted 50 people. Great. It was really, you know, a big success. And there were a lot of people that, you know, weren't there that, you know, should have been there. Could have been.
We'll make it to the next one. I'd like to get to know my neighbors.
Well, I have other things that day already.
It was fun. And other than that, I don't think there really is anything. I haven't heard anything new on the church, on the church steps.
Okay.
And no, Paul's roof extension, or his little, you know, is absolutely gorgeous.
It's
it
beautiful.
looks like it was there from the very beginning.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Yep. You know, that's a nice example of a really informed client who understood why we were doing what we were doing and was just totally in the spirit of things. And the result is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I will just add really briefly, I guess there's one thing that we need to vote on or agree on. For 162 Huguenot Street, they've had supply and contractor problems and are asking for an extension, which now you see. And they're asking for an extra year with a checkpoint 6 months in. This seems to me a totally reasonable request, and I would grant it.
I would
I
agree.
agree, yes.
I move that we grant it.
Moved. Is there a second? Sue seconded. Any further discussion? Chris, is there any objection?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, let's have a vote then. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous, Val.
Thank you.
Okay, let's report that back.
Will do.
North Front Street. I think I reported last meeting about the sidewalk. I did help negotiate some in-kind help from the village. It's still a really expensive project, so I don't know how the owner is going to go forward with that, but it was nice to have the village work with us a little bit. Camilla, how about the paint color?
Yes, I had a nice visit with Ingrid a couple of weeks ago, and we seem to be pretty much on the same page about color choices and where the building might end up when it's all finished. I don't think they have made a final decision yet, and I will be giving them some more choices just in case. I know that the staircase that runs on the side of the building has been painted a dark brown, so I will take that into consideration. But Ingrid is leaning towards a very soft yellow color, kind of similar to what the shop sign is outside. So that would be complementary, I think. We sort of agreed that a very light color like a white or anything like that, there would be just too much contrast between the shop and the large building. So we might even go as dark as a brick color. We will see. So,
Well, I think it can only be an improvement.
yes,
Do you have the sense, Camilla, that they're talking about painting next year at this point? I would assume.
I'm not sure about the timeline, but I don't think that they are in a big hurry. So.
Yeah, I mean we don't have that many more reliable painting days.
Yeah, that's true.
That's great. Thanks.
And just one thing about
Oh.
Huguenot Street, that the fencing went up at 118.
Yes, and that's,
Oh,
it looks beautiful.
It looks very nice.
okay, good. Let's make sure that's in the minutes, Val. 118 fence.
I want to also mention 140 that did sell, so there are new owners there. Do you want to do a letter of introduction like you've done before?
Yeah, I think that would be good. Let's make. Is that the Nyquist house?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Val,
They're
let's.
very nice.
Have you met them? Did they show up at the new? Or at the,
Oh, I don't know. So yes.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Do you have a name? I don't have that yet.
No, I don't right now. I mean, there were so many names coming at me, and that's not my forte to remember. So I don't. I might be able, I could probably find it out for you, but.
I might be able to find out through the building department too. I can try.
Yeah, Val, if you could maybe start with that. We should really go with what's on record anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll be glad to dust off that letter. That's great. Camilla, anything from the art show? Any updates?
I don't have any updates as far as planning is concerned. I think things are pretty much in the air right now as far as COVID is concerned, and how safe it would be to have an in-person exhibit. I think we should wait a little bit longer before we decide what to do. I picked up the 2 remaining artwork that was still at the library and the certificate. So I have them safely at our
Thank
house.
you for doing that.
Oh, sure. And I know I know the creator of one of the artworks, so I will reach out to her and
Oh, good.
hopefully I can return it.
That's great. Thank you.
And next week I will attend Ariana's workshop about setting up. No,
There, I mean, we're not going to be doing anything face to face, I don't think. Is that correct, Tom?
I think, no,
Yeah.
probably not.
I
this year.
went to the training on the 8th and I found it, I mean, it's not really an ideal space in terms of the setup, and we have very little maneuverability to rearrange the space. There are a number of pieces that would have to be connected, and not easily, certainly doable, but not easily done and a bit inconvenient to manage. And the very night that that training happened was when the village board met and made the decision that they would meet remotely. They're leaving it up to the other boards and commissions to make that decision for themselves. But it was one of the reasons we decided to go remote this time, rather than trying to do a face-to-face with the setup.
I will let her know then that, I mean, I signed up. I don't know if, I guess I would have to formally tell her that.
If you want, I can just touch base with her to see if she's even still planning to offer that.
Right.
Yeah, it may be that
I just thought that if I go to the training, I can talk to her about maybe accessing the site to be able to upload pictures on the HPC website of the village board.
Well, I would suggest not just showing up at the firehouse on the 22nd, but touching base with her first.
Sure.
Just to be on the safe side, because she would have to open the space as well. So hate to have you waiting outside a locked door, have it not open.
Well, Camilla,
I
do you
do know-
want to just reach out on those two questions then?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, let's leave it that way. Sorry, Steve, I cut you off.
No, I was just going to say, I again with the Shade Tree Commission, they all agreed to just do remote. They thought about the hybrid, and they were just like, no. So
Yeah,
I do know of other village entities in the same as we are that are not getting into that.
yeah, I think we made the right choice. Much as I'd really much rather be around a table, but it's not a particularly good meeting space, and we would be masked, and there's that whole hybrid bit. So, Camilla, that sounds great. Let's go on to number 9, which is actually good news, Chris. Steve found, and then just a few days ago, I found the sign, and thank you, Val. That's great.
There we go. Yeah.
It looks like it could definitely use a refresh. So I guess the question is, Camilla, I mean, if they were to say, yeah, that would be great, do you feel like you have the time
Yes,
to do it?
I can definitely do it. Yes.
Okay.
I would be happy to. Do you think we could remove the sign like we did on Huguenot Street, or would it?
Well, Orkan really was the hero on that with his
impact drill. I think that did the trick.
It did the trick. I mean, I had sprayed it with rust remover, and we could team up to do that, like spray it a couple of times before, even a couple of days before trying the impact wrench.
I have the yellow paint. I checked.
And I think the blue was sprayed.
It was a spray, yes, and we don't have any more of that.
We have the budget to buy. So Chris, do you know anybody in Riften? Would you know how to reach out to the concerned party there?
So I went on their like town navigation site, like to everything, and I sent in like I think there was like a box to be like, oh, to get in touch here. But regardless of whatever, I wasn't able to get in touch with anybody. So I don't know if there's like, I haven't been able to find like exactly who to get in touch with, but I should just honestly give a call to town hall. I'm sure that would be 20 times easier, even though everyone.
That's probably the fast. Yeah, that might be the fast. Could you do that, Chris? I mean, I'll be glad to make the make the offer. But it'd be great if you could tell me who to call or email.
Yeah, I can definitely get in touch with them.
Okay. That'd be great.
All right, cool.
If that moves, well, I guess, Camilla, you'd be doing this at home anyway.
Yes.
So we have some time. It's not really that weather dependent.
Right.
And I think that we probably could remove it the same way that we did last time. The only difference being that we would need like a step stool of some sort, because it's slightly higher up than the sign on Huguenot Street.
Okay, easily done.
Yeah, just as like a thing.
And I drive by every evening, so if you need me to stop by prior to whatever data set, I can spray it with WD-40.
Yeah, that would be great. I've got something that's WD-40 times 10, Steve. It's like
even better.
Yeah. So let's see if they wish us to do it, and we'll just team up and do it.
Cool.
So Chris, just let us know, okay?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
I'm actually gonna look now.
Budget report is pretty easy. The exact numbers slipped out of my mind, but I think we're about 16%, 17% into the year, and we have spent somewhere around 10% of our budget. Yep.
This is what you're looking at is July.
Okay.
And then here is August.
25% of the year complete. And
Where are we?
next page, maybe.
No, we're up at the top now.
13%. So we're in great shape budget-wise, which means, Camilla, we can buy blue paint
That's good.
for our
I
neighbors.
buy it anyway.
Yeah, budget's always pretty easy. Let's see. Can we? Let's see. Val, you've been sending all the updates, and they've been helpful. Yesterday, I sat in on a past forward pre-conference event, which honestly wasn't worth the time. I mean, it was perfectly fine, but we're not the right audience for it. So I was ready to report things back, but it was about grassroots organizing, typically around individual properties, and just didn't have much for where we are now. I mean, if we'd had problems with the Ann Oliver House, it would have been germane, but that's been quite the opposite. Is anybody interested in registering for the online conference? The budget is there, and you'd be most welcome, or either of the conferences, actually.
I would be interested. I really enjoyed it last year too. So
Please, Camilla, that would be great. I just kind of know the pace of my life, and I know I can't. Sure, Camilla, any of the above. And we're always glad to hear what you can tell us. Item number 12, I think we pretty much answered. I expect that the remainder of 2021 is going to be remote.
The other question around that, though, is whether we stick with Wednesdays now that we're not using the space that required it, or go back to Mondays.
Tom, I recall you were giving up an important evening bicycle ride that was on your previously scheduled Wednesdays. I would be happy to move back to the previously scheduled Mondays if that frees you up and if it's convenient for everyone else.
sure.
I am happy to do that. The way the light works, though, it's getting dark by 7, so it's really not an issue anymore. Thank you, though, Steve. Sue, do you have any strong feelings about Wednesdays versus Mondays?
No, I mean, Wednesdays actually works a little better for me because I tend to have a every other Monday meeting, but I'm just as soon, skip out of it once in a while. So, that's fine for me. So it doesn't matter to me.
Okay. Camilla, any leaning?
No, either Monday or Wednesday would work for me too. So whatever you decide is fine.
Okay. Chris, Steve?
I'm good either way.
I think Wednesday works slightly better for me, but it's nothing I couldn't,
Okay.
switch around.
Well, I'm hearing 2 slight inclinations to Wednesday, plus it's what's on the calendar, right? The new
Not
revised.
actually, the calendars now still say Mondays.
Oh, I'm sorry. So no, it doesn't.
Yeah, there's never been a mass update to the new meeting schedules.
It's also 2 iterations. Val, is Wednesday inconvenient for you?
Mostly no. I mean, I can go either way as well. The very slight advantage was that if I get you the minutes on Sunday, it's less of a problem because the meeting isn't the next night.
Well, let's stick with Wednesday for October and November.
And maybe in the spring when when we get more daylight, we can switch back to Mondays for you.
Oh, you really don't. Yeah, thank you. That group has sort of petered out as well, so it's really less of a thing. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but let's go with October 20th and November 17th, and we'll wrap up the year that way. And I guess we should hold. Are we really going to hold December 22nd? I don't know. I guess we can hold it.
Yeah, I mean, it's already held. We just have to usually let them know if they can release it. But it was related to the space. And I don't know that the space is usable.
I really doubt if we're doing this in September, we're going to be doing it.
Right.
A while.
Right. And
Okay.
I'm not sure what this means for planning meeting dates for 2022, which we usually need to decide in November to get it on the village calendar and prepare for the annual mailing.
Yeah. Well, again, let's cross that in a month or two. I think that there are 3 things left and 2 of them are executive sessions. So if you don't mind, I'd like to just circle back. I realize we're almost to 9:30, which is rough.
Before we get too far away from the bottom of the agenda, can we talk about those NYMER things? Because it's 11A.
Oh, 11. Yeah. Oh, yes. Sorry.
Because I've heard from most of you, but not all of you. And I really need to let Nicole know what she has to follow up on. So as I understand it, Chris, you have not done that training yet, right? The
No.
harassment discrimination. Okay. And neither has Pat, but everyone else has. Tom and Camilla and Steve have gotten their certificates, but Tom and Sue have not. Is that correct? So I need to have Nicole follow up on that. The other piece of this is we should all have received emails from NeoGov asking us to validate our email addresses. Now, Tom, you got that email, Camilla got that email, and I got that email, but I don't know if anyone else got that email.
Steve,
I
did-
did get the email. I did get the email, but I didn't respond within 5 days. So I
Okay.
need to get a new invitation, please.
Okay, so Tom's in the same situation.
And I need a new
So
one.
Camilla, you set up your training account though, right? And
Yes.
so did I. And you, Tom will be able to do it with a new invitation. Steve will be able to do it with a new invitation. Sue, did you get that NeoGov email? You did
Well,
not.
I couldn't find it. I went way back in my, junk and all the rest. I didn't see it. It's not to say that it's not there somewhere, but I obviously need a new one.
Mhm.
Because I
'Cause
know I didn't
it
fill it out.
expires quickly.
Yeah, 5 days is a short time.
Yeah, well, I know I definitely didn't get it within the last 5 days.
And Chris, if you didn't do the training, I'm not sure if you would have gotten an invitation or not, but do you remember anything from NeoGov?
No, I'm looking at my inbox right now and I have only
Check
one
spam,
thing, but
too.
it's doesn't not addressing any of the things we're talking about right now. So I don't know. It says do not reply. Is that it?
Maybe.
It might have been a do not reply, but what it did, it included a link.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm sorry. I just need another email.
Okay, so Sue, Steve, Chris,
Yeah.
and Tom
Mhm.
need new invitations. Okay.
Yeah. And I would be glad to hear from others when it comes. The last one went to my junk and it just sort of died and expired there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
think
do
that's
check
what
your spam and your junk folders just in case. Okay, and I'm not sure about Pat. I know she didn't do the training. It's possible she didn't get these, but I will check with her as well.
Okay.
All right,
Is
thank
it-
you for letting me know
Sure,
that.
of course. So I was going to say that there are three things. Two of them would be an executive session, which means that we would be turning off the broadcast. And I think we would actually be ending the meeting with the intention of going into executive session and then leaving it is the only way I can figure out technically how to do this. And for one of those, Chris, you actually have to be gone because we would be talking about membership, which when we're talking about your membership, you have to be out of the room. So what I would suggest is, could we have a brief discussion about the ADU questions so that I kind of know what I could put in a memo to Tim, which I would run by you before sharing it with Tim, just to kind of gather your thoughts and to represent an HPC position. What I was hearing, and I was taking notes as we talked, it seemed like there's pretty broad agreement that this is a social good. And so I think we can say that we recognize the value of this kind of initiative. I'm not sure if I'm speaking for the group or myself here. I am really concerned about just opening up the doors to easy conversions that are going to have lasting architectural consequences. So in the original iteration of that draft law, there was no protection for front doors. And I think it changed because I jumped in and early on said that has to go. So as I said, I have some concerns. I have concerns about the sort of downside or invisible side of what this might be. And I'm really concerned about inviting more short-term rentals and possibly making it worse for young families. I mean, there's a lot of emphasis on young renters, but young families who want to buy in the village are really up against competition from, income investment people. So I personally have some concerns about whether it's a good policy, but I think for the purposes of HPC, I'm concerned about facades. I'm concerned about easy setbacks that could create noise issues and light issues and shade, sunlight and shade issues. I'm not sure. I think parking, obviously Tim feels different about this, but I am concerned about creating more parking problems. which isn't exactly an HPC thing, I guess, but could be. So I really wanted just to take the temperature of the commission so that I'm accurately writing a memo, which I'll circulate before I give to Tim, but it sounds like we should move rather quickly. I don't think we have the luxury of waiting till October, which is too bad, but.
Tom, I'll jump in and I'll say that I agree with all of your concerns. Like you, I think overall the principle is great, but I definitely have those concerns as well with the facades and the doorways. We've all driven through cities that have these beautiful old brownstones with 4 doors, on the front entrance. And I do think, just as a matter of record, I would like it noted that we have concerns about parking. I don't know that, again, that's not our total purview, and I don't know if anyone would necessarily pay attention, but I would like that on record personally.
Mm-hmm. Sue, do you have concerns about setbacks?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, like you said, the setbacks, the facades, everything that you mentioned, I absolutely agree with and feel that we need to spell out our concerns, just so we have it on record at least.
Got it.
Another thing that perhaps some of the tiny houses, I'm not sure exactly what square footage they might be, but if they are maybe under a certain square footage, they may not require foundation and could just be put on a slab, for example.
Oh, okay.
And that could be a concern, because then would they need a building permit for such?
I don't think that's a really good point, Camilla. I don't think it was addressed in the draft legislation. A tiny house is really a different animal. I mean, it doesn't have a foundation because it's movable. But is this opening the possibility of tiny houses?
Right. That's a good question.
And I don't know how I feel about that. I think I don't feel particularly good about that.
No, especially if they're just set, alongside the main house.
Yeah.
It could just be plopped anywhere.
And tiny houses they can be very charming out in a field, but they don't really use an architecture that's in the idiom of New Paltz. They're often very high and narrow because they're built on trailers. Yeah, Camilla, that's a really good point, and I don't think there's anything in the draft legislation that addresses it. Steve, what are your thoughts?
Tom, I think your points are spot on. This isn't really it is kind of a rush job for us. And I'm a little worried that we don't, I'm going to have to reread that document a couple more times in the AARP thing, because it's hard to see right now what unintended consequences might occur. And you have thought of a couple of them parking in the added doorways. And I'm just trying to think what else haven't I thought about, or what else hasn't been discussed. But I think in general we do support it, and I think your caveats are worthy and should be included.
Mm-hmm. What you just said, Steve, triggered something that I spoke about earlier, but didn't just now. I feel much more comfortable about subdividing existing structures, like the kind of classic big Victorian that's too big for a modern family. So maybe this would be something maybe on Wirtz. There's some very big houses there. I feel less happy about purpose-built extensions. I think that's going to invite some really, some potentially bad architecture, if that's going to be allowed, I'd really like the HPC to have control over what gets built. And, we can all think of examples around the community where an addition just has nothing to do with the pre-existing structure, and it creates a white elephant. It just creates a monster. So I think I'd like to say something about that.
Sure, like Grove and John, I think that house.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, design review board. That's what.
Yeah.
That's what.
Yeah. Yeah, I've used John and Grove as my poster boy a few times.
If you can't be a good example, you can be a horrible warning.
Yeah, right. Chris, how about you? What is your feeling?
I think Stephen kind of like hit it the nail on the head. I pretty much stole the words out of my mouth. So I agree wholeheartedly, pretty much with everything that was that he said. I definitely want to look at it more because I feel like, again, there are things like I mean, Camilla just brought up a great point, and it's only been like an hour since we talked about, so. But I do think of, there's a lot of people that would, I think, like to see more housing freed up, and I do like the idea that it's already or like green in a way, because it's it's existing structures for the most part.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I think it gives flexibility to people who may need it, and also opens up kind of like stuff that is rental wise, at least for people my age or getting out of school. Like there's like kind of a gridlock right now. There's not much available, and there's a lot of people that want to move back that would actually be more long-term residents, but they can't find something that can fit their short-term need of just like getting back into the area. So I see where the benefits are. I'm just always skeptical of being like, yeah, sure, open it up for short-term rentals,
Well, I agree. I think
you get all like,
so it's one of the main, dangers of an unintended consequence is just making it worse for people in your situation and the situation you described from friends. Because there is, if it has the effect of creating some housing stock for people who've kind of aged out of student housing, but don't have the money for zero place, let's say, then I'd be all for it, or, mostly all for it. Everybody, I'll work up a memo and I will circulate it before it goes to Tim, but we should probably be pretty quick about this. So please watch your inbox in the next couple of days, maybe over the weekend. I will write it up, and please, make sure that you're happy with it. Object if you find anything objectionable, and we'll work it out before it goes forward. And, maybe we have enough time to have the mayor back, I hope. I was hoping we could also talk about B1 and B2 with him, but obviously that was asking too much. So let's see where that goes. And I will also wrap B1 and B2 into our discussion of downtown district. Okay.
Can I just ask Tom, on the agenda, it says that the public hearing for the zoning zoning plan amendments, the public hearing is closed for that. Does it mean that it's a done deal now, or do we know if we have more hearings?
Let's see, I've lost where it is.
It's back up under Bill's section in A.
A2.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, A3.
Camilla, I don't know. I guess I'm just working on a hunch that public means members of the public, and we have a status that is a little more insider than that. So I think we would still be listened to. I don't know, though. I can ask that.
We can also see if there are subsequent minutes posted that weren't available when I put this agenda together. So I can check that, or anyone else can check that as well.
Yeah. There was a letter to the editor on September 1st. It was from former Mayor Terry Dungan, urging people to look really closely at the language of what would be permitted. And he was urging that we could get a lot taller buildings than the language suggests. So that is something to ask about. Thanks, Camilla. Is there anything else before we go into executive session? Okay, so Val, I do not know how we stop going live.
No, I have to do it from within Zoom, so I will
Okay,
do that now.
actually, before you do that, maybe we should take, I think the vote should go this way. We would
need to vote
entertain
to
a
open the
motion
executive session.
to go into executive session and close our meeting from executive session. So in effect, we're closing the public part of this meeting now. And that's just an accommodation to the technology that we have to use. Does that make sense, everyone?
Yeah.
Because we can't really go back to the
Yeah.
meeting once it's closed. So is there a motion to go into executive session with the purpose of discussing these two topics, closing the meeting to the public now, closing the full meeting at the end of executive session?
I so move.
Moved and seconded by Camilla. All those in favor?
I
Okay, great.
All right.
Give me a sec.